All right, moving to the NFC South, the New Orleans Saints, which is funny. We're doing this in reverse order, who has the highest picks, but I think people might feel best about the Saints, or at least a good chunk of people might feel best about the Saints out of all the NFC South teams, and so they get to pick eight. So here we go. New Orleans Saints picks 8, 42, 73, 132, 136, 150, 172, and 190. There's a lot to like about how the last, year plus have gone for the New Orleans Saints. Took Tyler Shuck in the 40s and he became a decent starter. He looks pretty good. Things seem competent as far as the franchise and the way they're playing under Kellen Moore. The cap is getting healthy for the first time in a decade. I know you're loving that. And our picks and the strengths of this draft are lining up really well. Wide receiver, edge, and corner are our top needs, and I think we can address all three of those with our top three picks. So at 8, we have options like Cardinal Tate, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, David Bailey, Ruben Bain, and Mansour Delane. The order I'd take those players is probably Tate, Bailey, Lemon, Delane, Bain, and Tyson. And I'd be happy with however that played out. At 42, we'll continue to look at all those positions. Brazel, Bell, Bernard, Zion Young, R. Mason Thomas, Gabe Yakis, Brandon Cisse, Chris Johnson, D'Angelo Pons are a chunk of the names available in that range. And then once we get to 73, we have to start looking at center, a theme of the night. Eric McCoy is still a good player and our leader in that group, but the injuries and half seasons continue to pile up. So Lou, Slaughter, Heck, Jones are all options there. We'll also keep an eye on whatever position we haven't taken in our top three needs and address it with one of our picks in the 130s if we haven't yet to that point. So, and then the rest of day three, 150 and on, will just be about depth in the trenches and at safety. But I want to come out with a wide receiver, a corner, an edge, and then a center in those first four picks.
Yeah, so I like the needs you've labeled. I like the type of players that you're going after. I will say this for the Saints. It's looking brighter to me than it's looked in a long time. It really is. Now, there's still a world in which Kellen Moore turns out to be a fairly average or mediocre head coach, right? And there's still a world in which Tyler Shuck looks more like what some of us thought he would look like, and that's just not a great quarterback. But based on what we saw last year, it looks a lot brighter than that. Kellen
Hmm.
Moore looks more than capable. And Tyler Shuck, I liked what I saw out of him even better than what I saw out of Jackson Dart from a passing standpoint. And I like what I saw from Shuck way better than what I saw out of Cam Ward last year. I mean, I Tyler Shuck looks like he may have something there. And you mentioned it last spring. And there were other people that were saying, hey, take a harder look at Tyler Shuck because we think there's something there. I wasn't one of those guys, but he showed me enough that I'm a little excited. I'm not a lot excited, but I'm a little excited. So, yeah, absolutely. Now, for me personally, with the Saints, I would still be more open to talent infusion, best player available than I would needs. But, why not direct that into the needs that you mentioned? Yes. I don't know that I would want to take high risk players like a Brazel, for instance. And I also don't
Mm.
think I would want to take physically limited players. Um, it- there's so many good RAS scores these days. It's almost like you have to go back in and research what was driving the RAS,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
But if you've watched the tape and you're like, this guy really seems to burst in terms of athleticism and talent, those are the guys I would want to steer toward if I'm the Saints. But yeah, I'm with you. It's looking really hopeful. It's looking like more rainbows and flowers than what we've seen in a few years.
Which way would you lean for the Saints and their needs? So if you're saying like take the talent approach first, like if you can optimize the talent, but let's say we
Yeah,
were going to specifically look at edge and wide receiver, because DB, like they need DBs, but they have invested in that overall, right? They took a Quincy Riley last year. They took, what was the safety? Jonas Sanker last year. So they've
yeah,
taken defensive
yeah,
backs. They need a corner. But if we push those aside, if we looked at 8 and 42 specifically, we'll do the stacking game. But do you like
yeah.
that collection of edges or wide receivers better at 8 versus edges or wide receivers better at 42? Because like you said, like Brazel is kind of like a high variance player. Bell is coming off the injury. Um, Bernard is a useful player, but not necessarily the most talented. But then you look at the edge rushers at 8, and you're like, okay, Bailey doesn't really stop the run. Ruben Bain has short arms. which way do you think you lean? What would make you feel best walking out of pick 42 if you took one of those receivers first or one of those edge rushers first?
Let me put off the stacking question for 1 second and just say if I were just picking need that I wanted to upgrade, it would be the wide receiver. I would
Hmm.
love to add a talented wide receiver in
Yeah.
here. So I don't think he's going to be there, but if Carnell Tate were sitting there, I think I'd snatch him up.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. But generally speaking, out of the guys I think might be there, I think I'd rather grab an edge at 8. Whether it's Bain or Bailey, I think I'd rather have them. And then we'll get a second tier wide receiver that should still upgrade our room at the 41, 42 spot.
And you can make the argument, Chris Bell, Louisville,
Right.
Shuck, and
Yeah.
that might be nice. That might be
Yeah.
nice. You get those two together and you get a Ruben Bain or something at 8. That would be pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. The Saints, man, they've been so complicated for so long. This was one of the easiest ones. It was like, oh, look at that team needs, need talent, like good spots in the draft. Like things are going well for the Saints. All right, let's move to the Bucks. It's a little murkier for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay Bucks picks 15, 46, 77, 116, 155, 195, 229. Things might finally be transitioning for the Bucks. 2025 was the first time since 2019 that we did not win the division and then therefore make the playoffs. Franchise legends Mike Evans and Levante David both gone from the team. Evans signing with San Francisco. David
Yeah.
officially retiring just today as we recorded, actually, Wednesday the 25th. 2026 is also the last year of Baker Mayfield's current contract. This is not being talked about a lot, but he has void years after 2026. So this is sneaky, like, what's going to happen here? Todd Bowles is always like, is he on the hot seat no matter what happens? But now it's kind of like, is Todd Bowles on the hot seat just because, wow, we might be turning over a new leaf in Tampa Bay in 2027, I guess. Luckily, the team needs for this roster apply to both 2026 and beyond. Defensive line needs a heavy investment, whether it's to help specifically for this year or just because you need to build in the trenches. It could honestly happen with each of the first two picks. Ideally, this would be an Akeem Mesidor and Kalen Bakes at 15 and 46 falling to us. But DJ Parker, Peter Woods, Keldrick Falk, Caden McDonald are all on the board at 15, and then a lot of other names at 46. We'd also be willing to trade back from 15, considering there could be a run of offensive tackles around here. And it feels like a majority of the names I mentioned could be available in the 20s. So we'll certainly take calls here at 56 if we can, or at 15 if we can. At 77, there are several ways this can go. One more defensive name we're interested in is Kyle Lewis, the linebacker out of Pitt. He's a playmaker we can use in the middle of the field. With Levante David being gone, who was just a ball magnet, playmaker, smart guy for so long. We have Alex Anzalone, who we signed, Servassier Dennis, some other thumpers, but Lewis could be like kind of a spark in the middle there. Um, and then and if Lewis is gone at 77, we'll turn our attention to the offense, pass catcher specifically. At 116, I'm looking hard at the quarterbacks. We likely won't be bad enough to be major players in the 2027 class, like talking a 3 or 4 win team that's drafting at the top of that class next year. So just in case, I'm looking to add a young guy to the room here. And everyone knows the names here: Drew Aller, Carson Beck. Um, Nussmeier's probably not all the way down here, but he certainly could be. But I'm looking at quarterbacks at 116. With our three late day 3 picks, we'll look at O-line depth, linebacker, if we don't get Lewis there at 77, and then maybe a running back or a pass catcher. But for Tampa Bay, primarily looking on the defensive line, try to jumpstart this defense, get a little juice going. How do you feel about this for the Bucks?
So I like everything you put out there. I mean, every bit of it. The defensive line work, pass catcher, the quarterback. The quarterback's an interesting conversation, actually. But that's not where I'm going. I'm going to bang on something that I've mentioned before for the Buccaneers in passing when we were talking about them in games or in preseason predictions. My favorite spot for Sonny Styles is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
Oh
and my
yeah.
favorite team for Sonny Styles is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Several teams could use him. And this was before Levante David's absence. And I know they signed Alex Anzalone. I understand all of that. But Tampa Bay has had a major hole at linebacker, especially in pass coverage for the past 2 or 3 years now, especially the
Oh yeah.
past 2 years. It had a lot of good defensive things working around it, but boy, that was like a major hole that just kept getting
Hmm.
picked at by even average quarterbacks. And to be able to put Sonny Styles in right there alongside Anzalone and allow him to do the zone dropping that he does, and then the ability to carry some routes, but then the ability to come in and blow up the run game. I would trade up for that. I don't think he's going to be there at 15, but I would
No.
trade up for that. So, that's something I would trade up for. I know they're going to have to trade up pretty far to get him. It's not going to be cheap. I would still do it. I think it's just such a great fit. That aside, I like everything else you're talking about here. If we're sticking and picking, then heck yeah, let's get one of those defensive linemen. Lots of other things there. The quarterback later, yeah, I'm in favor of all of that.
I love Mesidor for them. He's just such a Todd
Yeah,
Bowles guy. Like, it just wreck your stuff up sort of dude on that defensive line would be a ton of fun. Um, because they still have guys like that. Yaya Diaby is a mess you up kind of guy. Vita Vea obviously is a mess you up guy. And then you
yeah,
got Kalijah Cansey with a little bit of the splash. So that would be a fun group. And they've been missing a real true kind of number one guy for a while now. And not that
yeah,
Mesidor necessarily profiles at that, but I think he's a guy that can get 8 sacks a season and be a really tough
yeah.
run defender and just really really fun dude. But like if they swung on a Keldrick Falk, like that would be cool. Could he be on lock there? Um, but they do have a checkered history of taking swings on these sorts of guys. But one of these defensive linemen is definitely necessary. Now for the trade up scenario, I mean, gosh, for Sonny Styles at this point, like you're talking like first rounder next year, probably. And I just don't think you could do that with the quarterback situation. But let me see here. Did you see this? And this was just late this afternoon, so you might not have seen it. Tape from Arvell Reese at the Ohio State Pro Day came out of him
No,
going
I
around the
haven't seen the
bags.
pro day tape. No.
So there's no bend. Arvell Reese is not bending. He's kind of just like squatting and like he's almost doing
Right.
like the piñata at a party, like baseball bat on the forehead spinning around. Like he's kind of doing that thing, which is tough. Some people were really cooking him for how like little bend there was. So if let's say teams get like kind of scared off and are like he is just an off-ball linebacker and now they're going back through the tape and they're like, do we even like him as much as Sonny Styles as an off-ball linebacker? Like maybe Styles actually goes ahead of him and restarts to fall a little bit. Would you also
Right.
do like a big trade up for Arvell Reese? Say it's at like I mean, we just talked about the Saints at 8, but that was the first number that came to mind. Like, would you do that? Like, think about Arvell Reese just as an off-ball linebacker. Would you trade up for him too, or is this a pure Sonny Styles kind of thing?
It's a Sonny Styles fit because I think Sonny Styles pass coverage, especially in zone, is
Yeah,
is out of
yeah,
this
it's better
world
than
for a
Reese.
linebacker.
For
Yeah,
sure.
that's really where I'm going with that. Uh, you know, all these guys have concerns, right?
Yeah,
Um, Reese, the idea of Reese being stuck in between positions has been a real thing the entire season. And the idea that he might not ever be a great edge rusher with a lot of sacks, but still that athleticism, size, the ability to blow up the run game,
yeah,
it's still pretty good. I wouldn't trade up for him for Tampa Bay. I wouldn't.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think I could get behind trading a pick next year. If you're thinking about trying to have any kind of ammunition for a quarterback necessarily, what would you trade? Like obviously, like at minimum, you're talking like 46. So like you're talking about first round and second round probably to move up. But if someone was like, well, 15, 46 in your first next year, and you can come get the third pick from the car. Remember when the Cardinals a few years ago traded out of it might have even been three, and then traded back up for Paris Johnson at 6. Let's say they were trying to do something like that for a right tackle. They traded back to 15. They pick up a first round pick in 46, and then they trade 15 and 46 to get back to like again, let's say 8 to take one of those right tackles. Would you trade as the Bucks 15, 46, and next year's first to get Sonny Styles at 3?
I, I'm not sure I would. Now, it sounds high. Now you're great about, plucking value out of the air, and I usually have to go check the charts.
Yeah, I didn't check the chart
But
on that one. That was off the dome. Let me try to check my
yeah,
math here. Let's see how
yeah.
I did.
While I jabber for a minute, if you want to check and see what the if that's right or not, 1546 in next year's one is probably something I would not do, even though I love the Sunny Styles match. That probably would be more expensive than I would want to do. Now, if I could do 1546 in next year's two, I might would do that, or if I could do 1577 and something from next year, I'd be more interested. But yeah, the 1546 and one starts to sound a little rich. So,
All right, let's see. Let's see how I did. 1,050 points for 15, 440 for 46. So if my math is right, that's 1,490 points. 1,490 points gets you to, I mean, that alone technically would get you to 8.
okay,
And then they say subtract 30 or like go back around. So let's say I did another 400 on top of that. That
okay,
could get you to 4. So if that was what you were calling, that would be next year's first. So yeah, to get into that top 5, that is probably what it would be.
okay.
Yeah,
Which,
which is a lot. Which is a lot. If their quarterback situation was more stable, or even if Jason Light is up there, like, no, I know Baker's the guy I want, then you get into it. But like after the way last year went, the injuries, the way he was playing after the injuries, that
yeah,
would be a lot to bet on Baker again for next year in a way that is like we don't even have a parachute of getting one of those quarterbacks next year. I think everything's kind of lining up for them to be ready to just kind of turn the page on this whole thing. And as much as I love Sonny Styles, yeah, he's so far up mocks, man. He's gonna get drafted so high. Remember when I was like, I would love the Steelers to draft him at 21. Remember that pipe dream in the fall? Those were the days.
yeah,
Now I'm
yeah.
talking about Ty Simpson.
I
Ugh,
know.
I hate football. What are we doing? Why do we do this? Anything else on the Bucks? Is there
No,
one position outside of defensive line or defensive front seven that you're like the Bucks need an infusion here or a certain type of thing here coming out of the draft?
no. Oddly enough, they're still kind of in transition. I think Jason Light's a good general manager. I like the
Oh yeah.
work that he does, and yet still, it's like they haven't caught up yet. They caught up to be competitive and playoff competitive, which is great. They
hmm
were dangerous last year at one point.
hmm
But now it kind of feels like, yeah, they're having to potentially transition and catch up and hit reset, a little mini reset again. So at
Yeah.
what point does he get to finally turn the page and catch something really good again? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's Tampa Bay. Carolina, talk about a team that is pretty exciting right now. Carolina Panthers picks 19, 51, 83, 119, 158, 159, 200. With our moves in free agency, we're definitely in a position to take best player available based on whatever direction our franchise wants to go, right? Or if we want to focus more on defense, if we want to focus more on offense, whatever. So with the signing of Jalen Phillips and Devin Lloyd, we're hoping to break into that top half of the league on the defensive side of the ball. So do we continue to insulate the offense by giving Bryce Young more weapons? Or do we continue to build out the defense with another swing? Avion Terrell, Jamal McCoy, Colton Hood, and Daniel Thieneman are definitely targets for us to add a layer to the secondary that we bypassed in free agency. You know, we hit the defensive line, we hit linebackers. If we wanted to get that third level of the defense, those are the names. Any of those corners could play outside across from J.C. Horn, with Mike Jackson still being good enough. They wouldn't have to play right away, but if they walk in right away as an upgrade, that could raise the level of the defense. Thieneman will also be good as a running mate for Trayvon Morig, who can move around a lot, while Thieneman can cover a lot of ground as a center fielder. We could look at any position really defensively, even with the moves we made, but I'd probably rather save those swings for day two, like a flyer on another edge rusher, a flyer on another linebacker kind of thing. I'd rather wait. Still thinking first round here. I'm looking at the offense now. So it's probably too late for one of the top 3 receivers. And I don't need to take from the second tier of guys here. Maybe I consider at 51 or 83, though. I like the group there for the draft capital more than the group here for a first. Like, I like the Bells and Brazzles and all that sort of thing more than a Concepcion or Boston at 19. But I am thinking about Kenyon Sadiq at tight end. Yes, it's good at a tight end class, but I have a few good tight ends here in the building, but none of the potential game breaking skills Sadiq has. Tedero McMillan, Xavier Legette, Jalen Cooker, and Sadiq would provide an interesting potential of skill sets, a mix of different body types and abilities as the group continues to mature over time. So kind of like what we were talking about with Sadiq earlier, right? Like a team, they don't need a tight end, they don't need a receiver, but just a boost to the offense would be interesting. So if I add Sadiq to the group of four DBs I mentioned, I'd actually probably take Sadiq first out of all of those. I'd probably rather go in that direction. And then at 51 and 83, I think I could take decent swings on defensive backs. And although my tight end and wide receiver rooms haven't changed from last year, an element of my run game, Enrico Datto is gone. And with the offensive line, Cade Mays is gone, and Ike Ekwonu is dealing with a major knee injury. It does feel like the right move to add something to the offense to keep that from cratering, right? So if Bryce Young was insulated by like decent offensive line, decent run game, interesting pass catchers, I can't replace a left tackle at 19. There's not a running back I'm going to take at 19, but my run game, my pass protection is a little bit different, a little bit shaky now. So let me insulate the offense by adding another weapon. But also with Sadiq, it's not going to necessarily impact Leggett or Coker's abilities to be on the field if I still think something's there. And then even with Cade Mays' departure, I'm going to skip doing the thing we've done with all these other teams, saying I'll look at center on day two. We signed Luke Fortner from New Orleans, who played okay last year, and I can bring back either Austin Corbett or Brady Christensen, still for depth between those monster guards we have. So maybe late day three, I'll take a center capable player, but for now, I'm actually going to skip it. Day two, I'll focus on defense. If I get Sadiq, then I'm looking at all three levels of the defense still with 51 and 83. And at 119, I start to look at receiver and then go back to the defense after that. So for the Panthers, the plan I came to is Kenyon Sadiq at 19, defense at 51 and 83, a true wide receiver at 119, and then more depth on defense later on. How do you feel about this move for the Panthers?
I like it. Honestly, I came to some of the same pathways you did. I think I went left instead of right, where you went right, but boy, I was right there on the cusp of these same exact decisions here. I mean, it was flip a coin basically, right? So, yeah, I totally in line with the thinking here all the way through. Let me start. I want to hit four or five things here real quick. Uh, I want to keep pouring in as many resources into this defense as I can. I know what the Panthers showed at the tail end of last year, getting better defensively. They still, at that point, did not have anywhere near the personnel to keep supporting that kind of performance, especially as they play
Right.
better teams in playoff scenarios. No chance. Need a major that they've started that through free agency. They've absolutely got that ball rolling with defensive talent upgrades. Got to continue that during the draft, I'm convinced. Having said that, need to add a pass catcher here somewhere, somehow, whether it's the first round pick or whether it's that second round pick. They need to add a pass catcher here to this offense because Bryce Young showed enough for them to keep him, but he still needs more help to to keep him hanging in there, right? That needs that help. And then I'm with you. I would have already signed Corbett or Christensen, maybe both. I
Mm-hmm.
would have already gotten that done. I don't know why they're fooling around on that. I would have already done that, a week ago. But anyway, yes. And then at 83, I would draft an interior offensive lineman, or at 119. They're still a good cluster. It doesn't have to be center. It can be
Yeah.
center guard, even if they don't play this year. Let them sit for a year. But 83, 119, I would love to start pipelining the younger guys in to replace the older, more expensive guys. They're not old, but they are older and expensive on offensive line. Now, let me settle in on that first round pick right there. Last night, shameless plug. Last night, me and Austin and Shane on Pro Football Enterprises, we did a Panthers four-round mock draft. We literally sat there and discussed right there at that first round pick, Kenyon Sadiq or his Oregon teammate Dylan Thineman. I mean, that was it.
That's amazing.
There were other options, but that's what we settled on, and we picked Thineman. But we were all three happy with Sadiq as well. Okay. And I love your note in here about Dylan Thineman being a perfect running mate for Trevon Merrick. All right. Now, we also, by chance, last night for Box Score Network, did the Dylan Thineman prospect profile, which will be up just any day now. And I ripped Thineman a new one for some things. The closer he gets to the line of scrimmage, the worse and less effective he is. He's almost
Mm-hmm.
useless in goal line and short yardage situations. And out of all the prospects we've covered this year, nobody gets physically pushed around, run over, eliminated more than him. Having said that, his work as center fielder is so good. It's so influential. It's so pervasive. He's so smart at it and's got the speed range combo to do it and the shoulder dropping hits to do it. It is such a work of art. That would go perfect with Trevon Merrick, who tends to be more of a nickel box type of a guy. That would just fit hand in glove. So that's what we did. We loved it. Love putting Dylan Thineman in right there. Wouldn't hesitate to do it. But having said that, I also wouldn't hesitate to drop Kenyon Sadiq in here because the tight end room needs an upgrade. I mean, it really needs an upgrade, not just pass catchers. Tight end specifically could use the boost there. So that's where we ended up with Carolina. So I'm, again, when it came to two decisions, we went left instead of right. But man, we're right there in line with all of that thinking.
Yeah, I don't love Thieneman as much as a lot of people, everyone hyped him up before the combine. He had a really good combine.
Right.
They're like, hey, after what happened with Nicky Manwari last year as this like versatile safety goes and tests like an absolute freak, like yada yada.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that is unfair to put on anybody. Even Warrior is the
Right.
size of a linebacker, 6'3", 220. And Thieneman's 6 foot 205. Like it's a
Yeah.
completely different world. Even Warrior's still testing in the 98th percentile of these tests, and Thieneman's at 94, 95th percentile, but at much small. So it's a completely different thing. You're
It
drafting
is.
him to be a center fielder who can come up and hit a little bit,
Right.
not to be
Right.
he like not even like a Brian Brandt, like a play, a star position. He can play slot corner. Oh, he can be a
Um,
dime linebacker. Nope, drafting him to
yeah.
be a deep center fielder and like
Right.
useful for the right team. The Panthers, kudos to them for their moves in free agency because now they can they can not even take a swing. They can lay down a bunt, and move guys over. They can just get a little grounder up the middle and try to
Right.
sneak on base here with this pick. Jermon McCoy would be a fine pick because it's like,
Right.
hey, if he doesn't work out because of the questions and the injury and the play style, we've got good defensive backs. We'll be okay for this year. But we're taking a swing on the upside of, like you said, can we really get this defense to crack the top 10? So it makes sense,
Yeah.
with that being the ultimate decision. What I didn't want to do was what's the saying? Don't let good be the enemy of great, right?
Yeah.
Don't or vice versa, whatever it is. Like don't shoot so hard to be great that you miss out on being good. Because what I don't want to happen to Carolina is they're like, okay, let's make this defense top 10. And then they look at the offense and are like, oh wait, we forgot Ike Ekwonu's out. So we got Rasheed Walker for 4 million
Yeah.
bucks. We lost our starting center, Cade Mays, who was an ass kicker. And like Rico Dowdle was like a revelation for our run game for a little bit there. And now our offense is back to 28th and we had a horrible season. And now we don't have a quarterback and like and Leggett didn't get better and Cooker is just
Right.
like a nice slowers. And now our offense is just terrible and our defense is expensive and we need a new quarterback. So this was like that seems like a really bad place to be. So we made those investments on defense, let those guys take us up one more level. Maybe we swing and get to another level here. Now, all that said, if like Mansour Delane is here at 19 or something like that, like forget about it. Like we're
Yeah.
taking Mansour Delane. He's higher on my board than all those guys. Um, but yeah, Sadiq just like that infusion just is just interesting and like adding a layer of a different flavor that we can add to this offense to help Bryce Young would be really interesting for me.
Yeah. Agreed. And listen, they won't do what I'm about to suggest. Even though I want to pour in the defensive talent, but it wouldn't bother me at all if they pulled in Kenyon Sadiq at tight end in the first round and then went back to wide receiver and got
Hmm.
a big talented guy or a speed guy with
Hmm.
that second round pick. That wouldn't bother me at all because what you're saying is true. You're aiming for a top 10 defense when your offense might slide to 28th. You even in that division, you're not going to go very far, right? So
Yep.
it is worth considering. Let's make sure this offense is productive, even though, yeah, we would love to build up the defense too. So
Yeah. See Cleveland Browns last 3 years if you want to know
yeah,
what top five defense and or top 10 defense and bottom five offense
yeah,
does. All right. Our last team of the night, the Atlanta Falcons. Let me preface this by saying, as Simon, I've taken every dig at the Falcons that I could.
Mm.
over the last year for the trade in last year's draft. I'm not
Everyone
going every single time I had a chance, even chances that didn't exist, I made them.
made them.
That said, moving forward, starting tonight, there's a lot of real life stuff that is horrific going on with James Pierce Jr. And making light of that trade or that player or anything surrounding that is just not something I'm interested in. So moving forward, their draft starts at 48. Not going to say anything else about it. Not going to refer back to it in later pods and just take any more digs. It is what it is. It's done. Closing the book. The Atlanta Falcons have new leadership. I assume they're going to have a new edge rusher over there. Um, and we're just going to move. We're going to F it, we ball, as they say. So the Atlanta Falcons picks 48, 79, 122, 215, and 231, just 5 picks. This is the start of a new regime, new quote unquote president in Matt Ryan, new quote unquote GM in Ian Cunningham, whatever they're doing to circumvent the Bears getting some draft picks, and a new quarterback, sort of. With 5 picks in the draft, we need a wide receiver, a defensive front, and a cornerback, and we have some work to do. So last year we were at our best when we had a couple pluggers in the middle of the line, and then just speed on the outside and at linebacker blitzing. So at 48, I'm looking at guys like R. Mason Thomas and Anthony Hill Jr. Just two fast guys. One's an edge rusher, one's an off ball linebacker that I could just send at the quarterback. We kept defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. We want to play the defense the exact same way. Caden Ellis left in free agency. So if we got a blitzing linebacker or some more speed off the edge, that's the way we want to play. That's where we think we can be most successful. So that's what I'm looking to do at 48. I need one player coming out of this top 50 that I know can add to my group and get after the QB in a hurry. Then at 79, I'm going to pivot. I need a wide receiver too. The range is sort of tricky to tell who's going to be available here, but just know from names like Elijah Surratt down to like Jacoby Lane and everyone in between, we're interested and we're going to take a swing. Antonio Williams, Ted Hurst, etc. We'll be bringing in a day two wide receiver to go with our top 50 front seven player. On day three, literally as I was typing this up, the Falcons traded down from 114 to 197 and from 122 to 215 to acquire safety Sidney Brown, who gives us nice depth behind, Bates and Xavier Watts, but mostly for special teams. But at 122 is where I'll take a swing on an outside corner. Need a true long-standing CB2 here. So 122, I'll take a swing. Then at 215 and 231, I need some O-line depth. Jake Matthews is 35. Caleb McGarry is 32 and coming off of missing all of last season. Ryan Newsel is 30 and a free agent after 2026. Matthew Bergeron is also a free agent after 2026. Meanwhile, longtime swing player Elijah Wilkinson signed a deal with the Cardinals in free agency. So I'm going to take both these picks with my reunion between Kevin Stefanski and O-line coach Bill Callahan and take a flyer on two offensive linemen and see if I can get a future starter out of it. I don't even have names for this. We're just going to take some swings and see what happens. But that's what I'm doing with those 5 picks, Ben. I'm going to get a speedy front seven player to blitz the quarterback, 79 a wide receiver two, 122 an outside corner, and then 2 picks in the 200s, a couple offensive linemen. How do you feel about this for Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm with you on most of this. Um, I'm probably not quite feeling as needy to go get a quarterback stressor as what you are, but that's totally fine. I That's what they do. That's totally fine. My needs went CB, wide receiver two, linebacker, defensive tackle, offensive line. Um, I will say this: the Falcons, they do have needs in several different places. What I don't want them to do is just try to plug holes with moderate players. With limited draft picks, I really do want them to do what you said, and that is focus on something. Let's get something
Hmm.
rock solid. Whatever position group that is, whether it is more guys getting pressure on the quarterback who are also athletic, they can float around in space, stop, run, right? That would be awesome. You know, if they went out and got, two pass catchers, that would be fine. Or just a really good wide receiver to go with Bijan Robinson and London.
Drake London.
Yeah,
Mm.
that would be fine. Um, I do want them to focus on building something here and not just trying to spread it around when you have limited draft picks. So that really would be the thing for me. So whatever they go with there, that's totally fine. Wide receiver, I would be very interested in. Elijah Surratt is a name that I really love. I think that's he's not a first run guy. He doesn't have that explosiveness, but that's a guy that looks like to me he could be day one starter and play in the league for 8 to 10 years and produce. That's what I see when I look at Elijah Surratt. But there's other guys there. You mentioned Ted Hurst. That would be a good guy there. Just I mean, out of the same, not that far away, either out of the same state. Yeah. So I would love that. If they went defensive back, that would be fine as well. They have several things here. Just don't get too scattered. Yeah, focus. At some point, I love your idea late in the draft of taking swings at offensive line because it's not urgent yet, but you do. And listen, we know the odds of you hitting at 215 or 191 on an offensive lineman are small, but you'd love to at least give them a chance. Pipeline in those younger guys to sit behind the current pretty good starters there. I love that as well.
So when you were saying like you don't have a lot of picks, so don't spread yourself too thin, is that like you want to really attack one side of the ball, or is that like try and get somebody that can really solidify a big need? Don't just take a player at because you need someone at a position rather, but it's more about like improving an aspect of the game. So like what type of pass catcher do we need to complement who we have in the room? What type of, like that sort of thing? Or is it more about like, hey, pick one route. You have five picks, use four of them on one side of the ball, and then like take a flyer with the other one.
It's much more what you said the first go around. I would love to target some specific part of the game. So
Hmm.
if we decide that we really need another wide receiver in here, let's not take a random swing in the fourth round. Let's use that top pick and really upgrade that room. That
Yeah.
would, yeah, let's focus it.
And Surratt's a really interesting name for them. I like Surratt. I was messaging you over the weekend as I was doing my work on these day two receivers, and it's like Brazel is your swing for like a guy that could be a number one, like
Yeah.
size, speed, physicality, hands, all of that.
Hmm.
Bell is a also kind of like a high, not high, kind of a high risk, high reward, but he's like a hyper focused type of player that you're going after. So it's like, I need a guy that's gonna take one to the house on drags and slants, and like can
Yes.
occasionally do the other things, but like that's what I'm going for. And as long as that athleticism is there, that's a very like narrow scope, and I'm trying to put that in my offense, right? And then Surratt is interesting because I just view him as like he's gonna go on any team, pick any good team you want and be a great number three as just like a dirty work guy.
Yeah.
I see him a lot like what early tenure Juwan Jennings was for the Niners when he was like their number four player. He was like
Okay.
special teamer, rarely came in, but like power slot kind of guy, like made tough catches over the middle. And then like you look up in year four, now he's not signed anywhere right now, which probably speaks to what he's actually viewed at around the league. Like last year, he was a bit of like he got the numbers and got the notoriety because like they needed just somebody to play and he was there. Um, but like I think Surratt could be like honestly like a perfect number three on the 49ers. Like, okay, just work over the middle, make the tough catches, block, play special teams, and like you'll have a role on a good team. That's where I see him fitting in. Um, and like, hey, depending on what Stefanski wants to use with Kyle Pitts, like they've tagged him, like if London and Pitts are essentially your wide receivers, and we don't have any draft capital to get a tight. Didn't they pull a tight end from somewhere? Hang on, wait. I have their depth chart right here. Actually, it was Austin Hooper. They brought in Austin Hooper. So if Hooper's your wide tight end, and you make Pitts your, essentially a big wide receiver, and then Surratt's like your dirty work underneath blocker over the middle dude with Drake London, like I could see that pass catcher room. That would be nice because Jeremy Bernard is like just a good, solid player complement to like a lot of other good stuff going on. But I think they kind of need a little bit of grit from wide receivers. So I could see that Surratt thing working out. Um, yeah, a lot to do. They do the Tua swing, but they went out and got one of the best coaches on the market. So, um,
Yeah.
and they're not in a bad place. They're just in a place of like we just need to decide where we're headed, right? Do we just kind of maintain what's going on? Do we plan more for the future? Be interested to see what they do. Anything else for you on Atlanta?
Yeah, Atlanta's a little bit in danger of being where, in a year or two, being where Tampa Bay or Cleveland is right now. It's kind of where they're heading. Um, they need to strengthen something, get some real identity. They've got some offensive weapons, and the offensive line has been good, but it will eventually age out on them. So,
Hmm.
um, the defense has a couple of players that have some promise, but it's not enough to really put together a solid one. So they need to pick a lane here and build that. That's my focus theme. But yeah, there's things to work with here, and I do like Stefanski. So we'll see.
And you mentioned the O line and the running game. Like Bill Callahan is a good offensive line coach. Didn't have great success in Tennessee, but good offense. But like their run game was built through their old offensive line coach, who's no longer there, right? Because he even maintained through a couple head coaches. So like, is Callahan and Stefanski gonna be all in on a Lindstrom, or are they gonna be ready to move on from McGarry or Bergeron soon? Like, they'll have some decisions to make what direction they want to take all that in. But you took a running back in the top 10 of the draft, so that's fine. See, I got a different dig in. Um, Anything else for you on Atlanta or any of these war rooms we just completed?
No, it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it.
All right, everybody. Look at that. We did that in under an hour and 45 minutes. Go us. Thank you all so much for being here. We are going to be back just next week with another round of these. The draft is very, very soon. Ben's looking at his calendar like, oh crap, we're doing another one of these next week. We have, I think, four of these in the next 5 weeks, or four shows in the next 5 weeks, because we'll have our annual NFL draft over under episode as well. But thank you for being here. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. If you're a fan of one of these teams, let us know what you would like to see or what you would like to do, or if we're totally off, or if there's a random bench player that's going to fill one of these roles that we don't know. Please let me know. I would love to know that. All comments are accepted and welcomed. If you're here on audio, A1 Day One, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here. If you're here on the Box Score YouTube, thank you so much. Stick around. We have a ton of draft content for you. Go check out Pro Football Enterprises, where you'll see Ben, Shane, Austin do all their offensive player breakdowns as well as mock drafts for team specific ones. And then you'll see full round, eventually maybe a full 2 round mock draft on this channel, as well as updated big boards from me, Ben, Austin, and Peyton. Until next time, thank you all so much. We will talk to you again soon. Have fun and be safe out there.